Hui o Mirasorth, Canal Kerno.
Welcome to this week's Cornwall channel. Coming up in this week's programme, a Cornish jukebox. These men aren't singing to audiences, they aren't performing, it's just part of Cornish life, and similar scenes take place in pubs all over the region. The Last Sleeper. Why the Last Sleeper from Paddington to Penzance is an unforgettable experience. Here's to the return of the sleeper, and may its mysteries keep unfolding. Cornwall Spring Story. Don't miss Cornwall's little-known spring garden's wow factor, the marvel of Cornish magnolias in full bloom. Then a quest to finance a wildlife in Cornwall film. We talked to Luke Wood when we met up with him at Parr Duck Pond about his passion for wildlife and to document it in full 4K resolution. The Eden Project brings us 10 tips for gardeners in March. We are very excited to bring you a documentary from our friends at the Motion Farm. The Clemos at Tredosa Chapel is a documentary about the life of Cornish poet Jack Clemo, who lived in the village of Trevisco near St Austell. To finish the programme, we have the latest feature video from Dr Theo Blackmore and Disability Cornwall. As always, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know what's going on in the area of Cornwall that you live. Get in contact with us on our website, cornwallchannel.co.uk, or contact us on our Facebook or Twitter pages. Enjoy the show.
I stood on Cape Cornwall. I stood on Cape Cornwall in the sun's evening glow. On Chew Hill at Newlyn to watch the fishing fleets go. Watch the sheep wheels at Giver as they spun around, and heard the men singing as they go underground. And no one will ever move me from this land until the Lord calls me to sit at his hand. For this is my Eden, and I'm not alone. For this is my Cornwall, and this is my home. I've left childish footsteps in the soft sand sand. I've chased the maize there, all giggly and tan. I stood on the cliff top in a westerly blow, and heard the waves thunder on the rocks far below. And no one will ever move me from this land until the Lord calls me to sit at his hand. For this is my Eden, and I'm not alone. For this is my Cornwall, and this is my home. For this is my Cornwall, and this is my home.
I'm here at Park Duck Pond, and for those viewers of you that know Cornwall and know Cornwall well, will know it's a lovely little spot here in mid-Cornwall. And Luke is joining with me now, and Luke, you're just about to embark on a big wildlife project. Tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, as you say, it's a wildlife project. I want it to be a documentary completely set in Cornwall, trying to explore and find some of the most beautiful things that we have to offer here, from deer to badgers to jellyfish in the ocean. It's really going to be quite a wide project through Cornwall, but I want to capture it in beautiful cinematic quality. So it does come quite expensive for the cameras and lenses that are required.
So why wildlife? Why that for you?
I just have a massive passion for wildlife. You know, ever since I was young and watching TV, I've been watching David Attenborough programs and programs like that. And you watch them, and it does inspire you to do something like this, to realise there is this magic out there of the wildlife. You know, there is still wildlife out there. We have quite a great diversity of animals as well. And you know, also there's another point that I want to make this DVD is to see how much of a climate change we've had on our wildlife, to see how it's coping with the recent floods. Is another one. You know, how much of an impact has that had? With TB, with the badgers, you know, and the coal. I want to see how much of an impact it has had on it. So there's also, you know, another reason for doing this.
Now, I know a lot of our viewers have asked us on Facebook and got in touch on email. They would love to see wildlife type programmes in Cornwall. Obviously our resources are quite tight as a small company trying to keep Cornwall on the TV. How do people get involved and help you with this then? What have they got to do? Where do they go?
Basically, as I said, you know, it is very expensive to do this. So I'm starting a page called Kickstarter, which is basically a website where people can pledge towards the film, and they can donate from as little as £1 all the way up to thousands if they wish. It purely depends on them. But you don't even need to pledge to be a part of this. I'm happy for you to come along onto my Facebook page and give some tips and advice and tell me some places where to go. But yeah, I do need the funding to get this film up and going. It's £3,000 in total to get it going.
And you've got to raise that exact amount or more.
Yes.
Otherwise you don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get anything at all if the money isn't, the goal isn't reached within 60 days. So I've got 60 days to get the money. If I don't get it, I don't get anything. So it could be £2,099 and, you know, I still have nothing.
So just giving us an example then, if one of the viewers said, we'd like to help Luke on his way with this to get this project going, if they was to donate £20 for argument's sake, what would they get for that? For
£20 you actually get a sponsor's edition of the DVD. It won't be for sale, this version. It will just be for people who have pledged and given money towards the film. And then if you go to up to £40, you actually get a print of your choice, which you can watch the DVD, look through and go, wow, I love that shot of the deer, I'd like that on print. So I'll go to the efforts of putting that onto a canvas for you as well.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, get hold of Luke on his Facebook page, show him your support. We'd love to see this happen. You've got our full support anyway. And of course, we look forward to having a few clips, you know, from Luke as he starts filming when this project gets going, for you to see here on the Cornwall channel, and of course, be able to get hold of the DVD once it's finished.
Absolutely.
So wish you all the best with it, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Hi, I'm Fern Britton and I'm very happy to be here in Foy at the Du Maurier Festival and to be on the Cornwall channel.
Well, there's that sort of romance about it, isn't there? You know, about getting on, and you've perhaps been out for the night.
I love the fact that you get on in Paddington at midnight. You know, you can have been to the theatre or out to dinner.
Especially if you're with somebody special as well.
It's as if the ghosts of Brunel and Gooch and all the men who made the Great Western great come down from the rafters to see what is the last real link with the Great Western Railway on the main line today depart on its way to Cornwall.
So you have a drink in the bar and you look around and imagine these terrifically interesting characters from the Agatha Christie type murder mysteries that you were sure you better lock that door of your cabin quite carefully.
They treat you very well. It's like riding first class. You feel like a princess.
There's a real camaraderie about it.
I do really enjoy meeting the passengers and meeting the same ones.
I don't think it's a den of iniquity, but
I've seen people meet and buy a berth together.
I've never locked my door. You live in hope on the night Riviera.
It was like a cradle, really, being rocked to sleep.
Traveling with my daughter was the first time she slept through the night was on a night train.
honestly, I don't think you could be an insomniac on this train.
Now they've all gone to bed, this is the favourite time of the night. I could sit down and have a cup of tea.
For me, it's a bit like going back to the 1930s. First thing in the morning for the steward to knock on the door and bring you a little tray with your breakfast. I think that's just wonderful.
You go with the seasons and the customers change as the season changes.
You pull your little blind up and there's the sea. You've arrived in Cornwall.
That first view of St Michael's Mount, always magical.
I think it's one of the best things you can do in Britain.
It's just absolutely timeless. It's like a bygone age as well as sort of modern travel.
Sewing seeds in modules is a great way to reduce transplant damage. You can even make your own modules by recycling old newspaper. It's coming up to the time of year now to sew things like tomatoes, aubergines, put them on a nice warm windowsill inside. A fun way to grow potatoes is to plant them in a bag like this. Choose a couple that we chitted earlier on in the year. Ensure you've got good drainage at the bottom. Now as the potatoes grow, you'll be able to roll up the sides of the bag, building up the soil around the stems. Now that the ground's warming up a little bit, there's opportunity to sow a few sort of risk-free veg, things like carrots, beans, peas and leeks. If it does turn a little bit cold, remember you can always use something like fleece to help protect them. Well, now's a great time to plant herbaceous perennials and divide the ones that you've got in your garden to get more to share around. Blossom on early flowering fruit trees, like these peaches, could well need protecting at this time of year from frost. The other thing that is a really good idea to do is go around and pollinate them by hand because there's so few insects about. The beginning of the spring is a great time to clean up our houseplants. Here in the Rainforest Bio, we just spray them over with water. At home, I tend to put them in the shower. The other thing that is good to do at this time of year is to pot them on. So choose a pot which is actually only just slightly larger than the pot that it's in at the moment. Well, if you put in green manures this winter, now's the time to dig them in. So by removing all these dead flower heads from the narcissi, we're allowing them to build up their reserves to put on a really good flowering show for us next year. Although it's really busy in the garden in March, there's no reason not to get out and enjoy things like the beautiful hellebords that should be flowering. If they've still got dead leaves on them from last year which are showing dark patches or infections, cut those away so you can really enjoy the beautiful flowers. Well, sadly it's the time of year where we have to cut back the stems on our beautiful cornus and willow, but we can use these stems to make really lovely sculptures or things like edging, willow hurdles to go around the garden.
Cornwall Spring story is all about the moment magnolias flower, spring has arrived in England. And we have 7 champion magnolias in 7 different gardens in Cornwall. They're from the Great Gardens of Cornwall. And when each of them bloom with 50 blooms, that is the moment that spring has arrived. And that is right now.
It's mainly to do with the Cornish climate and the fact that the plants that are here was introduced in the 1900s, mainly from Asia, sort of China and that sort of area. And the camellias, rhododendrons, magnolias all flower in the spring and flourish in the Cornish climate.
The bell is possibly the earliest flowering Asiatic magnolia in mainland Britain. In a mild winter, she can be in flower as early as late January, but she tends to sort of average out about mid-February.
As the sun starts to come out, the flowers come out, it makes all of us feel a lot better. We're out and about, we've got shaken that winter horrible being stuck indoors out of our souls, and you can get out and enjoy nature, enjoy the gardens, and start to look forward to a great spring and summer ahead.
Located just 1 mile from Cornwall's famous Eden project, and set in 5 acres of its own private, quiet grounds. Boscundle Manor is a family-run boutique-style hotel, set in a wonderful oasis in which to relax and unwind. Recently rated the most romantic hotel in Cornwall on TripAdvisor, Boscundle Manor is the ideal base to enjoy the sights and sounds of our beautiful county. Our first cruise departs 22nd of April for 10 days cruising south to the sun, calling at Vigo, Cadiz, Gibraltar and Oporto from £899 per person. On the 1st of May, there's an 11-day cruise to the beautiful Norwegian fjords. Prices start at £949 per person. Or for some summer sun, we have a 13-day cruise departing on the 11th of August, calling at Madeira and the Canary Islands from £999 per person. We also have a Gardens and History cruise departing Falmouth 23rd of August, visiting northern Spain, France and St Mary's from £890 per person. Call 0800 652 3452 now, or call into any Newell's travel branch for more details.
Looking for a home maintenance company you can trust? Ocean now provides a whole range of expert maintenance services, from heating, electrics and plumbing to refurbishment and roofing. And thanks to our 24-hour emergency call-out service, you're always covered. Ocean, we do more than you think. To find out more, call St Austell 874488 today or visit www.morethanyoutthink.co.uk.
The Best Western Restormal Lodge Hotel, Lostwithiel, Cornwall, is an AA 3-star hotel with 36 rooms. Being only 10 minutes from the Eden project, our contemporary hotel in Lostwithiel offers free Wi-Fi, an outdoor heated pool and free parking. With an on-site restaurant and bar, we have all you need for a relaxing break. All of our bright, airy rooms are an ensuite with flat-screen TVs, hairdryers, and tea, coffee making facilities. Our conservatory restaurants have seasonal menus offering Cornish produce, while the lounge bar provides local ales and a well-stocked wine cellar. For your next visit to Cornwall, please check out our availability online or call us on 01208 872 223.
BK Coatings was established in 1990 and specialise in all types of decorating and industrial coatings. We're located in St Austell but cover the whole of Cornwall and West Devon. We can provide quotation for a single room to complete internal and external, commercial and domestic, using our fully trained team. We are also experts in industrial coatings to include shot blasting, steelwork painting, roof linings and concrete repairs. Contact us now for your free, no obligation quote.
Why should I find him here and not in a church, nor yet where nature heaves a breast like Olivet against the stars? I peer upon his footsteps in this quarried mud. I see his blood in rusty stains on pit props, wagon frames, bristling with nails, not leaves. There were no leaves upon his chosen tree, no parasitic flowering over shames of Eden's primal infidelity. Just splintered wood and nails were fairest blossoming for him who speaks where mica silt outbreaks like water from the side of his own clay in that strange day when he was pierced. Here still the earth face pales and rends in earthquake roarings of a blast with tainted rock outcast, while fields and woods lie dreaming yet of peace twixt God and his creation, of release from potent wrath, a faith that waxes bold in churches nestling snugly in the fold of scented hillsides where mild shadows brood, the dark and stubborn mood of him whose feet are bare upon this mire, and in the furnace fire which hardens all the clay that has escaped, would not be understood by worshippers of beauty toned and shaped to flower or hymn. I know their facile praise false to the heart of me, which like this pit must still be disemboweled of nature's stain and rendered fit by violent mouldings through the tunnelled ways of all he would regain.
I didn't understand Jack's writing one little bit. As time has gone on, and we have been having Jack Clement Memorial Days here in June each year, and some people who have studied Jack's writing come along and read to us, interspersed with comments by people who remember Jack. And now I'm getting quite fond of reading Jack occasionally.
My mother went to school with Jack, and I can remember her saying that the teachers were always holding up his essays that he wrote and saying how wonderful they were. But then she'd heard he'd won this award for his poetry, and she couldn't understand that because she said, all he write about is a load of rubbish, she thought. You know?
I think a lot of the locals, if I'm really truthful, Jack was the poet up the road, the writer up the road. But on the other hand, you will have found a number of poems that he wrote particularly about this chapel for certain special events and so on. And he describes the chapel and its location and its close proximity to the clay works in great detail.
A bleak spot was chosen, where narrow lanes twisted irritably down to a stream, and narrow lives twisted irritably down to death's river. "Build here," said the guides, "a chapel whose straight-spurred walls will curb the crooked ways." The surrounding plough scars sang their parable. Soon the good seed flashed from its solemn cover. The cramped valley had its fold of praise. Beyond living memory, the uncouth voices above long beards and frock coats poured the pure grain. In Victorian sunshine, fog, or smoky lamp rays, over the full pews, over veils and bonnets, mouldy muffs, ragged shawls and men's caps, smelling of hayrick or kiln fumes shoved under the boards. How many hands in this century have plucked deep waves of mystery from those organ keys, prompting the love thrill, the clasp of God's glory in melodious searches, ripples of Roman chords. Classic touch, trained choirs were to trace the reaper's track after the crude preachers. Under the same grey roof, rough dialect and elegant cadence bore the golden story. Roots of my story quiver in this corner guarding Bethel. I think how my bubbly, field-toughened grandfather clapped and shouted behind the pulpit, and how a grave-toned minister marked the oblation on my face as my infant eyes blinked at the communion rail. And there, 50-odd years later, I spoke vows at the end of a twisted lane where I entered, bride blessed, a straight, spurred union.
Of course, we used to worship every Sunday morning, back again after lunch for Sunday school, back again after tea for evening service. I can't say that I was the keenest person on earth to be here 3 times a day, to be truthful. And there would be occasions on which it would be absolutely tipping down with rain. And I used to say to my mother, I don't think I'll go to chapel tonight because it's raining and everything else. And my mother's reply was, Mrs. Clemo and Jack have just walked around the corner. They're soaking wet. If they can do it, so can you. Put your mac on and get out. So I came.
Evelyn, Jack's mother, was, I think to children, could appear to be quite a formidable woman. She wasn't full of laughs and jokes, but she was really quite serious.
We all see people in different lights. I saw her as being a woman who'd had a hard life, a woman who would give anything, a woman who put everything into looking after Jack, a woman who could look a bit stern, but somehow there was a presence about her that I sort of appreciated.
I came to Cornwall in 1947 to live with Mrs. Clemo and Jack, who immediately told me to call her mum, and Jack was my brother. I should say within an hour at least, I was at the top of the sandborough, next to the cottage, with Jack. She was very kind.
Yeah.
We weren't terribly keen on school lunches, so Mum used to make pasties on a Wednesday, and we would leave school at lunchtime, and then she would leave home around the same time, and we'd meet halfway and sit on the hedge, and Jack as well, and eat these pasties, and she'd have a flask of tea there for us, all hot drinks, and then we'd go our way back to school and they'd go home. And that used to just take up one of the days that we didn't like school dinners.
My first recollection of Jack was we discovered he had a typewriter. And my brother, Reg, was taken prisoner at the fall of Singapore. And the Japanese would not allow handwritten letters. It had to be typed. And Jack was the only one we knew that had a typewriter. And we were only allowed to write to him twice a year. So when the time was due, my sister and I would go up and Jack would type out the draft letter that we'd prepared. And that's how I got to know Jack. This is a book written by Jack, Confession of a Rebel, which he wanted to call Confession of a Misfit, but his publisher didn't agree with his title, in which there used to be a photograph. It's a photograph of Jack and his little dog Flush. That was before Spark, I believe. And he's written to Brenda, who appears on pages and lists all the page numbers from your old Gunnamaras playmate Jack, in which he writes,
Brenda and Sheila were by this time very good friends of mine. They brought the authentic village tang, the tang of the soil. Sheila was a dark, solid girl, sometimes a little reserved. Brenda, on the other hand, was an unpredictable tomboy, almost as willful and moody as I was, and therefore very lovable.
He did call me an unpredictable tomboy, and he wasn't over keen on my sister. He called her dark. She was very, very reserved. But the reason that he called me unpredictable was because none of them ever knew what I was going to get up to next. The top of the sandbar, next to the cottage, where the skip was removed, the track was still there, along with a lot of galvanise. And I used to sit on the galvanise and shoot down the track. When I was nearly at the bottom, I would jump off because there was several feet of water in the quarry and I couldn't swim. I went ahead, and when he saw what nearly happened, because, I mean, the galvanise always used to go down into the water. There must be scores and scores of sheets of galvanise in that quarry still. But when I turned around after I jumped off, I looked and he'd chickened out. He was still sitting there.
He used to come out when all the children came up, and when we went out to play, and he'd hold the skipping rope for us all to skip and everything. So, I mean, I had a lot of patience when I think about it. There was one instance when he was getting on my nerves a bit that particular day. I think he was getting irritated because we were making him hold the rope and one thing and another, and bend over for leapfrog. And I opened the coal house door and he went in, and I locked him in there. We went in for our tea, and Mum said, "Where's Jack?" I said, "Don't know, he must have gone for a walk." Anyway, eventually I said to her, "Yeah, no, I've locked him in the coal house." She was a little bit annoyed, but I went out and let him out, and he came out like a raging bull.
In a field on which the sand dumps spilt a vomit of gravel where grasses wilt, my ice world broke for an hour of flame with one who shared it in childish game. We romped in the sun, but the warmth I felt came only from her, as she tried to pelt my face into smiles with orange peel.
I remember that morning. It was the end of the 40s. There was still food rationing. And somehow or other, I don't know how she managed it, but Mother got hold of a Jaffa orange, which we hadn't seen any during the war. And she gave it to me to take out. I think it was Joan and Irene and Sheila and Jack and I. And we sat on the corner of the field, and I peeled it, divided it into equal numbers of pasties. When it came to Jack's share, I pretended that there wasn't any left and all he could have was the peel. I kept his share behind my back until afterwards, when I actually gave it to him.
She skinned the fruit with her teeth, would steal close up, undeterred by the threatened smack, her hand curled tightly behind her back, her hand clenched warm on the missiles broken, growing soft and moist with her blood's shy token.
But when that book came out and I read that, I just couldn't believe it, that he'd remembered it as well. But he seems to remember a lot more about it than me.
Go Jute is a company with Cornish roots but with a global reach with offices in Holland, USA, Australia and India. Specialising in premium quality jute and cotton bags for the individual customer and the corporate blue chip companies. Following the success of Go Jute, our sister company southwesternlywindbreaks.com is the first company in the world to offer an organic cotton windbreak printed with your corporate imagery as well as a stock range of designer windbreaks. Go Jute prides itself on its friendly and innovative approach. To view our full range of products with the in-house screen printing and embroidery, as well as other promotional products, please visit us online at gojute.co.uk.
Church End Veterinary Centre has been providing care for pets, horses and farm animals in St Austell and the surrounding area for over 100 years. We are now a 15-strong team of veterinary surgeons, nurses and support staff committed to providing the best possible care for your animals, including a 24-hour emergency service using vets from our practice. Please visit us online, churchendvets.co.uk, or call St Austell 72095.
Kingsley Village, so easy to get to with plenty of free parking. Come and browse all we have to offer under one roof. Why not feast your eyes over our delicious array of Cornish produce from our extensive food hall through to our cafe and Cornish crafts. Come and see why Kingsley Village is Cornwall's #1 choice for a Sunday carvery, served from 11:30 a.m. You will not be able to resist our mouth-watering selection of meats and vegetables. Kingsley Village at Fradden, the unique shopping venue in the centre of Cornwall. Just imagine stepping into your very own warm, bubbling oasis after a long day to soothe away those aches, pains and stresses of everyday life. Cornish Hot Tubs have over 100 spas to choose from and have an experienced sales and service team to make your dream a reality. Let Cornish Hot Tubs help you relax, unwind and enjoy life with a little luxury in your back garden. Just imagine sharing your special day and having a fabulous romantic moment releasing beautiful Cornish love doves at your wedding ceremony. This is a truly magical moment that you both can treasure forever at the start of your new life together. Cornish Love Doves are Cornwall's premier dove release specialists. Our team provides a first-class service to make the most special day of your life truly amazing.
I couldn't communicate with Jack. His mother, and latterly Ruth, had the means of communicating by writing on his palm, as you know. and they would tell Jack what it was all about, and then he would address his comments to you.
She would write on his knee if I went to talk, and he would talk to you then, but he was always very, very quiet, and always appeared very polite and kind.
He walked with a little bit of a stoop. As I say, he was bound to be a bit quiet. He couldn't hear, he couldn't see much.
When he was going blind, he had a piece of card that he painted black, and he had like a slit through it so that he could read the words of a book or whatever he was always writing or anything, and he used to put it down and just read through there.
Mm.
So, but that, I mean, after a few years, obviously his sight went, and he didn't have that anymore.
I had somebody that come to stay with me, and the little girl was born blind, and I took them over to see Jack. I can remember him sitting in the chair when I went in, and he held her and gave her a little book. I think it was the birth of Jesus, a little book done in Braille so that she could read when she got older.
It was just a tiny little room, really, and bookshelves with all Jack's books and that in there. And Jack's desk was in there, and that's where he used to sit. And there was just a little settee in there and an organ, which Mum used to teach lessons on. And then there was the Spence, which I said, I didn't even know what they were talking about, but she used to say, you go in there to wash. And then you'd go up the stairs, and there was quite a large front bedroom, I think where Mum and Jack slept. And then there was the back bedroom where my sister and I slept. Mm-hmm. Then there was the stairs with the planks across. Jack used to go up and sit up there in the dark because I think the lights used to hurt his eyes. Yeah, that was the cottage, really.
We've got a magnificent model downstairs built by Mr. Andy Hawken of Indian Queens. We asked for a small model of the cottage, and it took 6 of us to carry it in and put it in the memorial room. It's a magnificent model, and we're very, very pleased to have it. It's actually made of stone that came from the old cottage, slate from the roof of the old cottage, and it couldn't be more authentic than that, could it? Well, I cycled past it quite a lot when I was younger. I had an aunt who lived at Foxhall, and I was sent over there on errands. And my memory, of course, of the cottage at that time was that Jack was very fond of a Pomeranian dog. In fact, he had 2 of them. And these dogs used to run up and down the hedge outside the cottage, and the road then went right past that hedge. And one found oneself cycling faster just along that piece of road than any other part of the journey. Not that one was terribly afraid of a Pomeranian, but it didn't have to make a lot of noise. I always thought it was a little dark in there, but that may have been, of course, because of Jack's sight problems. A lowly sort of cottage, but it kind of felt homely even to a young lad. The cottage was owned by Gundvin and Restauric China Clay Company, still on their land obviously, and it was not habitable, and it was decided by the management to demolish it and use the site to build laboratories on. A lot of people were not happy about that, but that's eventually what happened to it. Once people knew that cottage was going, there was almost a little revolution. You know, verbally, people were annoyed, letters to the paper, phone calls up there, and so on, as we found. And 1 or 2 people associated with the chapel had worked for that company. They were furious, absolutely furious. Now, they had every right to knock it down. You know, I was interviewed by the paper, and I said, they've done nothing wrong. They owned a building, it wasn't habitable. They had tried to keep it habitable, but it wasn't. The council had condemned it for human occupation. So they were quite entitled to knock it down. On the other side, we've now knocked down a part of Cornish heritage.
I know it's no good wishing for what can never be. but I just can't help a thinking of those happy days with thee.
Well, I just remember that he used to come with his mother, and I suppose they walked at the time. She would walk anyway, but later on we had a rota of cars and we would go to fetch them to come to chapel and then take them home afterwards. Jack used to sit about 2/3 of the way back over there. He would sit to the right of his wife, and he would hold his hand out like this, and she would write in his hand of the things that was being said. Usually at the end of the service, you'd go back and shake hands, and I suppose she must have put a J in this thing, because he would, hold his hand up and say, "Oh, hello, Jennifer, and how are you?" Something like that.
I didn't write on his hand a lot. It was more Fran and Mum Clemmer. But on the occasions I did, he knew what you were going to... He seemed to know what you were going to say before you even said it,
Jack was naturally quiet, but he was interesting to listen to, and you could have a conversation.
Say I was just going to write Raymond, just his name. I just put R.A. and he'd say right away, Raymond.
He could answer you before you'd finished asking him the question.
Yeah.
He was that intuitive.
To lose one of your 5 main senses is bad enough, but to lose 2, and probably the 2 most important, is a rough deal.
We often wonder if he would have written the same way if he could see, but he had seen these things and then he could remember and write about it from his memories.
Would Jack have been writing it the way he did if he wasn't blind and deaf? And I think it's a good question which we will never know the answer to.
We really didn't take that much notice then. At that age, you don't, do you? And I didn't even know that he'd written the book, to be quite honest, not then. And I haven't been there all the time while he was writing these books and things. All I can remember is the manuscripts that he used to write, and he'd pile them up in a big pile on the desk, and then he'd sort out what he wanted, and the rest he'd give to me to draw on.
This is a bureau, or the bureau, on which Jack did a lot of his writing. These are genuine berries that Jack used to wear. He was very fond of wearing them. These garments were given to us by Ruth, and this came to us from Will Martin Clay Museum.
I mean, it was just normal to them to look at the clay tips, but he had all these magnificent words, and wherever all the words came from, I don't know. But yes, he had a wonderful, wonderful mind.
I met a lady who's no longer with us either, who lived on the bypass in St Austell, who taught Jack to type. And she said, I got him a Braille typewriter. And his answer, well, I'm not using that. Nothing wrong with me. And he did. He learned to type by counting the keys along and hitting them, But no, he wasn't going to play with a Braille typewriter. So it was a determination in Jack, I think, which I still think comes from his mother, because I think she was a strong woman, very strong woman.
She used to really do a lot of nice things for us. Mm-hmm. She always made her own cream. In the morning, she'd put the milk on top of the Cornish range, and it would cook, warm very slowly. And by tea time, you had thick clot of cream. That was lovely. So we always had clot of cream, well, practically every day.
That cream went on everything. Cabbage, turnip, everything.
Quite honestly, Evelyn Clemmo had a tough life. She lost her husband in the First World War. I don't suppose income was very great. And I think she did so much on so little.
We always had lovely Christmas days. We used to go, walk halfway to this church, going down the hill, and cut the Christmas tree, which was a holly tree in the hedge. Jack used to cut it, he used to saw it, and then we'd take it back home and we'd decorate it. This is usually Christmas Eve, and we put all our own decorations on that we'd all made. And then in the evening we'd sit by a roaring fire, and she'd bring out all the nuts, fruit and everything you could think of. And she used to say, just help yourself have as much as you want, and if you make a mess, don't worry about it. It'll all be cleaned up in the morning, and it was. It was lovely. It was a lovely, homely, family Christmas.
I mean, she did everything for him, and we did wonder what on earth would happen to Jack when she died. But of course, then this Ruth suddenly turned up out of the blue, which was just like a miracle, really.
Jack and Ruth were married here at Trethosa. This is a photograph of that wedding. This is Charles Causley.
Causley, he was quite friendly with Jack, and he was his best man at his wedding. Miskin, he was a mystery. Put it that way. I didn't like his paintings personally. I thought they looked cruel. I think they made them, Jack and Mum, look very harsh and hard. And they weren't like that at all. They were both very gentle people.
It was one of their summer trips down to our house, and we decided to go Drudden Steps. And we got to the top of the steps, and Ruth and Jack were insistent on going down. It was quite dangerous. Anyway, we decided to go down. I went first, Jack was in the middle, and Ruth followed on behind, trying to keep him in. Anyway, we got onto the beach, and the tide was running quite high. And Jack, being blind and deaf, he couldn't visualise what was going on. And he was up to his knees in the water, and of course the waves were coming in, and I was getting frantic. I thought he was going to drown. Anyway, we managed to get him back on the beach and got him dry. And we got him back up the steps again, which was quite some task.
And Mum and I were at the top, practically having kittens, because we knew that it was very dangerous for them coming up. And when he got up there, he had a seagull's feather in his hand, didn't he? He gave it to Mum. As if she'd be really pleased with the seagull's feather when she was really worried about him falling over the steps. But he was soaking, wasn't he, up to his waist practically.
He thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, he loved it. So.
I suppose it's the same theory with most writers, artists and so on. They're perhaps better respected and better understood after they've gone than they were when they were here. It was quite remarkable that you had, on special occasions, the chapel completely filled, the gallery filled, the vestry filled, then chairs in the aisle, which I think probably the fire officer today would not be very happy about. So we could conceivably say that what with the choir as well, we would probably have something like 280 plus people in this chapel.
The whole building would be absolutely full. The windows of the vestry would be taken down, there'd be chairs there, that was full. And when we were little, we would have little roses. A man called Mr. West down the road would bring a rose for us to pin on our dresses.
I was born at Stepaside, which is about half a mile down the road from here, and lived here until I was not quite 16, when I went to work in Bristol. And when I came back, things had changed. Chapel-going habits had died out. We've got about 11 on a Sunday morning if we were all here.
Well, we've got no children, no Sunday school here, so there's no anniversaries anymore. And once the television came in, then people had other things to do. But before that, this was the main focus of the week, church and chapel.
Like most chapels, we find it difficult to raise sufficient money to keep the chapel open for worship. We pledged that we would as long as we could, and that pledge remains. Inevitably, chapels and churches are closing, and one day that's going to have to happen to us too.
Things have just changed. I can't honestly say it's changed for the better.
Warplanes have crossed the dale, sparing the stubborn roof, though creeping apathy stripped the pews, closed the gallery. Time ripens, time bereaves, but we can rejoice with the traveller, whose wintry plough scars sang towards the sheaves.
Flower of my heart, sweet flower of the vale, none can excel thee, nay, none can compare with thy matchless beauty, for none the world o'er is so rich or so fair. Though each holds aloft with proud regal grace its wee golden head and its sweet smiling face, all the world over, though I search everywhere, I can ne'er find a flower to me half so dear, a flower rich, oh so fair.
The majority of people I interviewed described themselves as disabled because of their medical condition. The question I asked was, do you consider yourself a disabled person?
Definitely, being a disabled person is a totally central part of who I am.
And so why would you describe yourself as a disabled person?
Because you know, there's definitely things in society I don't find easy because of the barriers. But it's also about pride in who you are, really. And like, you know, being the whole of who you are and not pretending. But that wasn't easy growing up in Cornwall in the 60s, so it came a bit later. So I'm never ever going to let that go. Now I got it.
Only by my legs, Theo, my mind works perfectly. I can read okay, and obviously due to my disability I can't do handwriting very well at all, but I can fully work a normal computer like any other able-bodied person can. I can do it as well.
Very, very disabled. I was in West Cornwall Hospital only 3 weeks ago, and I was one of the most disabled individuals they've ever had there. I couldn't move my hand, I wasn't able to walk, I wasn't even able to ring the call bell. Couldn't do anything at all. But I could move my neck, of course, and talk and see. But other than that, I couldn't do anything at all. But everybody in the ward that I was on was 6 people. Everybody could use their hands and could feed themselves, because I couldn't.
I've described myself as a person who has a disability. It's basically mental health issues. But I obviously got some learning ones as well, which ain't so obvious. And I don't talk about it usually.
Participants: Dr. Claire Tregaskis, Paul Simmons, Pete Ski, Councillor Chris Jordan. Interviewer: Dr. Theo Blackmore. Transcriber: JHTS Transcription Services. Subtitles: Azook Community Interest Company. Disability Cornwall and Isles of Scilly. Empower, Assist, Facilitate. Supported by the National Lottery through the Heritage Lottery Fund. All interviews recorded in 2013. For more information about the project, please email theo@disabilitycornwall.org.uk.
Thank you for watching this week's Cornwall channel. We would love to hear from you, your thoughts and ideas for future Cornish programmes. This dedicated weekly channel for Cornwall on Sky and Freesat aims to deliver information and local programmes. If you have any news you think we should cover, then please get in touch using our website at cornwallchannel.co.uk or via our Facebook and Twitter pages. See you next week.